Well, it's end of day 4, and I guess it's time again to summarise the day for those that have been following the test match. And for us purists that got up in the middle of the night at 1 o'clock and sat and waited to watch the ground drying out, and then eventually to get some play and to see South Africa batting, to see Australia having declared. I felt sorry for Kawaja being stuck on 195, but that's the team game that we play, and you take the rough with the smooth and the good and the bad, and you'd like to have made it 200, I guess. But at the end of the day, South Africa going into bat. But before we get to the cricket, I really just want to talk on something that is also close to my heart, and I think that the commentators that we've been listening to over the last while have been outstanding. I've really enjoyed the great commentary that we've seen from so many. Let's just talk about the anchors. I mean, I think Pommy Mbang was outstanding as a cricket commentator. Sean Pollock goes without saying. He's an astute ex-captain, great bowler, great batsman, a wonderful pundit, and a great cricket brain. Ashwell Prince, for me, has been the outstanding part of it. He's brought a lot of things to the batting side and discussions. And if you're a purist and you listen carefully, his knowledge and his preparation side of it has been outstanding. And no wonder he was a good batter. I mean, he was a really classy batter. Hundreds at Lords, hundreds at Headingley. Played in winning series and really worked hard as a cricketer. Not naturally gifted, but understood how to play, like a Gary Kirsten, like a Dean Elgar, really. But he really worked out his game. So he brings a lot. The consummate professional is the presenter, Mark Nicholas. He was a fine cricketer in his time, captain of Hampshire. Then you had Mark Waugh coming in from time to time. I played against him. Also a great cricket brain, and that's why he's always commentating on Fox. They love him. Brings a lot to the party. I thought Morne Morkel was outstanding in 2 of the games. He brought a lot to the party in terms of a fast bowling side of it. Has played in winning series, understands that side. So all credit to the commentators that made it really outstanding. And what I've enjoyed, that each and every one of them, for me, are students of the game. They're students of Test cricket, they're students of the art of learning and listening and watching and then being able to put it across. So I've really enjoyed that side of it. From the cricket point of view, have I enjoyed the Test matches? South Africa losing? Not really. But looking deeper at that and getting to understand how things are going down in Australia, that's always for me very fascinating. What's even more fascinating, let me explain to some of the viewers here, is the cycle of cricket in the world. The test matches come along, there's not many per year. It's not as if you play T20 cricket. There's a limited amount of test cricket. So, you've really got to work hard outside of the test arena to become good at test cricket. And that's obviously the domestic series and the 4-day games where you really build your game to prepare yourself for test match cricket. But in the cycle of cricket for countries, you go back into the 1970 tour. It was a tour captained by South Africa at home. Ali Bacher was captain of South Africa, and they played against Australia, and they hammered Australia terribly. I mean, you go back in the numbers, you'll see that some of the test matches were won by an innings of 300 runs. The fine players that played for South Africa in those times, we all know were household names, the likes of the Barry Richards, the Mike Proctors, the Colin Blands, the Lee Irvins, the Peter Pollock. There was a lot of fine players playing in the 1970 series, and they played at home here, and they climbed all over Australia. Now, in the Australian side, they took a pounding. They went back home with their tail between their legs, and in that side were some good players. If I remember correctly, Ian Chappell was one of the players there. He went on to become one of the great players for Australia. He only averaged about 11 in the whole series. He really had a tough time, much like some of our players. So in the cycle, Australia got hammered, went back home. You take it a bit further on, in the 1993 series, through the 90s, I was playing in that series. It's really not a true reflection of what happened because we hadn't played Test cricket for almost many years, over 25 years. There was no Test cricket. So there was nothing to nobody passed the baton on. You kind of learnt on the job. In the first series, we managed to level the series against all expectations. Nobody really knew who we were. Nobody had been playing against us, and a lot of the players were well past their best. I mean, Dave Richardson was 34, I was 33. and debuting and really playing your first or second or third test matches. So a lot of us were in that space. Even some of the great players, the Brian McMillans were past his prime, Fani de Villiers, Alan Donald was older already. There weren't young tearaway fast bowlers, 19, 20, and batsmen. There was the Jacques Callis, of course, those kind of guys. But as that developed, so our cycle, also developed. Australia had lost badly in the 1970s. That was a memory. They wanted to erase that but totally. Then you go into the Graham Smith era. Well, Graham Smith's era was fantastic. They won the series against Australia in Australia. So, Australia really under the pump there, battled. They went back, worked it all out, changed a couple of things, kept some players. And their cycle has come around. Now we're in the cycle where South Africa's at the trough. And out of that, they're going to come out at some stage, hopefully. But as I've always said, you can't really just hope it's going to happen. You've got to come back, do some planning. You probably need to pick the bones out of the side to say, well, who's going to stay? Who made it? Who's got potential? Who's too old? Who's past it? Who's not going to add value later on? The likes of Rabada are going to be around. They're outstanding. Is Janssen going to be around? Of course he's. Carl Verreyne's had a great series. Timber Bavuma, where does he fit in? How does Kaya Zonda move forward? Does he stay in? Does he stay out? Are there better players that are going to be coming through? Their names are like Markrams and Brevis, and there's a couple in the mix. Will they come in? Depends how well they play in domestic cricket, I guess, because they're not going to play test matches. So we come home to a series against the West Indies. I think that's going to be interesting. Both countries at the bottom of their trough in the cycle. So that'll be interesting how we go there. I think there's only 2 tests, really not much to go by. The question is, who's going to lead? Who's going to lead? And one of the issues of cricket around the world, whenever you play Australia, they target the captain. And when your captain has a bad series, you can go on and rest assured the team struggle. They really battle. And they've come really hard at Dean Elgar. He's had a very poor series by his standards. He's been under pressure from the first day till they get on the plane tomorrow. He's under pressure. He's probably going through thoughts in his mind where they're, is it time now? He's been around a long time. He's had a disaster of a series. Is it time to pull the plug, give the captaincy over to someone? Who is it? The incumbent sounds like Bavuma. Will he be in the side? Probably going forward, yes. So it's probably a discussion to be had. Is there somebody else that can come in? So all of these things now need to be put into a pot and shaken up and discussed and to look to get out of the trough. The cycle we're in is a trough. And you're going to look at that in the mix of also the coach. Where's the coach? I haven't seen him even doing an interview, to be honest. Not even one. I haven't seen one live interview somewhere where we've had a discussion with him. So kind of guy in the background somewhere. Bowling coach, you've got to probably have a look at that. Bowling was our strength, but didn't come up to scratch. Is Charles Longeveld, going to carry on? Does it work? Who's the batting coach? So many errors made with talented players that are, not moving forward. So there's a discussion to be had there. Is there place now for an older head to be with the side? Almost a Mornay du Plessis performed the role for Francois Pinault's side with Kitch Christie. Is there a role for that now as opposed to just a manager? Possibly that's something like that to be looked at, just to bring some another perspective to the team. There's an opportunity possibly there. But there's a whole lot of shape to be looked in the shake-up, and I'm not going to sit here and abuse all the players and for what they are. I think there's some talent there. There's some talent to work with going forward. But as this series goes, it's been a disaster. You can clearly see the preparation within the last month or so has been one given. There's been an issue. They really missed some tricks there, not understanding how to go about it. But pressure does funny things. So tomorrow we come out, you've got 14 wickets to save. You've got to bat through there and try and save this test match. You're going to get to a point, you lose some wickets in the morning, no doubt, and you bat again and you lose 1 or 2 again. And you don't want to get yourself into a position where you come 4 o'clock and there's an hour left to play and you're 6 or 7 down and you start relying on your number 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 to win a game for you. It's really got to be done by numbers 1 to 5, 1 to 6 now. Somebody's got to come in. Got to be 3 really big partnerships, 2 guys getting 100. Making sure they go deep in the game, batting till 3, 4 o'clock, getting people out of the trouble, So that's going to be a tough ask because the ball's going to spin. Obviously, it's going to reverse swing, and the pressure of the time is going to come, And Not many people experience that kind of pressure of batting at the end with his fielders around the bat, and it doesn't matter how many runs you make, it's defend at all costs. And it's not a nice position to be in. But that's what we look forward to. And that again in itself is Test cricket, and it's a great thing to listen to go through. So I'm looking forward to tomorrow, win or lose. I think there's a lot to be seen, a lot of nice things to watch about this great game called Test cricket. And I'll just leave you with a little parting story. It was the 98 series we were playing in Australia at the very ground of Sydney. And while we were there, during the tea break, I looked out over the ground. We just walked off the field, and I looked out, and I heard some noise going on in out of the change room, and I looked out the window, and I saw a whole lot of guys lined up on the field there, and there were all older bullets standing there, and there was a lot of talk going on and presentations, and I kind of asked, I wonder what's going down there, and somebody said, yeah, it's the old team, and knowing the history of the game, as I did, and I read a lot, and I have been a student of cricket for many, many years, even while I was young, I knew that the 1948 team under Sir Donald Bradman, they were called the Invincibles, because they really never lost. And go and have a look at their record, by the way. Great players in that side. The 1948 Australian team, and today they're still revered in Australia as one of the greatest teams, obviously led by possibly the best batsman that's ever lived. And as I looked across the ground, I realized that this is the 50-year celebration of the 1948 team. It was 1998. And I had the presence of mind, fortunately, to just grab one of my spare bats out of my bag, and I grabbed a Cokie pen, and I raced down out the ground onto the field, and I waited till they sort of finished the ceremony, because we were just going back on the field, and I asked each one to quickly, would they mind signing a bat for me? And the surviving members of the 1948 Invincible team were on the field that day, and they signed a bat for me. And let me show you. It's in my collection right here, and this is it. It's the 1948 Invincibles, and there was Arthur Morris, there was a guy called Neil Harvey. I won't go through all the names for you, but those are the surviving members of the 1948 Invincibles team. And it was done. I got this bat at the Sydney Cricket Ground, on the same day, weekend as this test. So I have a very fond memory of Sydney, other than, of course, we won and beat Australia there in 1993, 94, when Fanie de Villiers got 6 wickets. So I have some fond memories of Sydney. So I thought I'd share that with you. And you have a great Saturday. Tomorrow's a big day for South African cricket. If we can survive that, imagine if you can survive and draw, come out of it. They'll learn a lot. The jury's out whether they can do that. It's going to need somebody in the top 4, at least 2 of them, to make hundreds. Take care, everyone.